Session 5. Sarah, 34 years old. Last week, she told us about the emails. Margaret, Claire, Daniel. She told us about her daughter, about what it means to decide what you are worth. Today, something unexpected happens. This is Session 5. In her own words,
I want to tell you about a phone call I didn't expect. 11 days after I walked out. 11 days of tea and school runs and portfolio work and Margaret's careful emails and Daniel's increasingly desperate ones. Daniel had called 7 times by then. I know because I counted. I didn't answer any of them. I let them ring. I watched his name appear on my screen and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger. Just nothing. Like watching rain on a window. He had also sent 11 emails by then. The tone had shifted with each one. The first was hurt. The second was confused. The third was conciliatory. The fourth was slightly cold. The fifth had a lawyer's name in the signature. I forwarded all of them to Margaret. Without comment. Just forwarded. And then on the 11th day, my phone rang. A number I recognized but hadn't expected. James. James had been Daniel's closest ally in that office for 6 years. His golf partner. His lunch companion. The man who laughed loudest at Daniel's jokes and sat closest to him in every meeting. If Daniel was the sun in that office, James was the planet that orbited him most faithfully. I almost didn't answer. I stood there looking at his name on my screen, and I thought, this is Daniel. This is Daniel using James to reach me because I won't answer him directly. This is a move. But something made me answer. Some instinct. The same instinct that had kept me watching for 23 days. I said hello. There was a pause. And then James said, Sarah, I need to tell you something. And I need you to know this is not on Daniel's behalf. This is just me. I sat down. He talked for 20 minutes. I didn't interrupt once. I just listened. The way I had learned to listen. He told me things I hadn't known. Things that filled in gaps I didn't even know existed. He told me that 3 years ago, when Daniel presented my Christmas campaign to the board, James had been in the room. He had seen the presentation. He had recognized the framework immediately because he had seen me working on it for weeks. He said he had thought about saying something. He said he had almost said something. But he didn't. He said, I told myself it wasn't my place. I told myself maybe you knew. Maybe you were okay with it. I told myself a lot of things. He told me that the new division, the one Daniel had announced so triumphantly in that Tuesday morning meeting, there were 3 people in that company who knew the original proposal was mine. James was one of them. He had seen the document 14 months ago when I was still working on it. Daniel had shown it to him, proudly, as if it were already his. He said, I should have told you then. I've thought about it every day since you left. I held the phone very carefully because my hands had started to shake. Not with anger, not with sadness. With something I didn't have a word for. Something that felt like the last piece of something very large finally clicking into place. I asked him one question. Just one. I said, James, Will you put that in writing? There was a long pause. And then he said, yes. I thanked him. I hung up. And I sat at my kitchen table for a very long time. Because I had built my case on documents, on metadata, on timestamps, on the kind of evidence that is irrefutable but cold. The kind of evidence that proves something happened but doesn't explain how it felt to be inside it. James was different. James was a witness. James was someone who had been in the room, someone who had watched it happen, someone who had said nothing for 3 years and had apparently not slept well because of it. I thought about what Daniel must be feeling right now. 11 days after my resignation. An investigation underway. Emails going unanswered. And now, his closest ally. His most faithful planet. Calling the woman he had spent 6 years helping to erase. I thought about what it must feel like to realize that the people you thought were yours were never really yours at all. And I thought, now he knows. Now he knows what it feels like to build something carefully, patiently, over years, and watch it fall apart. I made another cup of tea. I sat at my table. And for the first time since any of this began, I smiled. Not because I had won. I hadn't won yet. There was still so much ahead. The investigation, the new job, the life I was still building from scratch. I smiled because Daniel was sitting somewhere in that office right now, in that glass office on the 4th floor, and he was afraid. And I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking tea, in the middle of the afternoon, listening to my own house. And I was not afraid at all.
You said someone reached out. Someone you didn't expect. Who was it?
James, Daniel's closest ally, 6 years, golf partner, lunch companion, the man who had been in every room, the man who had seen everything and said nothing until now.
What did they say?
He said, I should have told you then. I've thought about it every day since you left. And then he said, yes, he would put it in writing. That was the moment I knew. Not hoped, not believed, knew. Daniel had spent 8 years building a fortress out of other people's work. And now, brick by brick, it was coming down. Not because I had torn it down, but because the people inside it had finally looked around and decided they didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't do that. I couldn't have done that. All I did was walk out with my head up and my coat on and a photograph in my hand. The rest happened on its own.
We'll continue next session. What Sarah describes is a phenomenon called collateral disclosure, when the exposure of one person's behavior causes others, witnesses, bystanders, silent observers, to finally speak. It is rarely planned. It is rarely expected. But it is almost always inevitable. Next time, Daniel makes his biggest mistake.